Hello guys, this is Project England Rising. So a lot of things have happened, and to be honest, I'm still catching up with things. As some of you will know, I got me into Kex fucking suspended for not paying the bill, which, as I said in that video on my main channel, it was torture. What happened, guys? I found out off Duke of Durham. I was online, my Wi-Fi was up long enough to get a message off Duke telling me the result of Brexit. And then my Wi-Fi got took off. And so I just couldn't do anything at all after that. I just made that video, which I couldn't upload. I wanted to talk about Brexit and the situation, and I couldn't do it, and it was just fucking torture. So let's get into Brexit. Oh, by the way, guys, as always, just use the chat box to ask any questions or to make any points or to say whatever. So the result actually surprised me, to be honest. I'm surprised that we won. But at the end of the day, I think there was so much focus and attention on the fact that the establishment might fix it. There was so much focus and attention on that. The establishment were forced to adhere to the actual results. I mean, it's like I've said before, guys, because we whites are still, for the very short moment, a majority in our nations, the political class is forced against its slimy will to adhere to some morsel of democracy. For the time being, they are forced to do that. That won't last long, of course. The approaching vile black and brown majority, they will never allow whites to rise at all or have any type of political voice whatsoever. So that's not going to last for long, but it happened this time. Yeah, same to you, Unity. Good to see you as well. Now, like I said, I'm surprised that we won it. I didn't actually think there was enough native English to actually do it, to actually do the vote, enough actual English people to win it, and B, that enough English people were even going to vote in the first place. Also, I thought they would fix the result no matter what. But that's not what happened. So the turnout of it was 72%, which is a pretty impressive turnout. And it was 51% in favour of leave, 49% who wanted to remain. Now, as I said the other day, that 49%, that will have consisted almost entirely of blacks, Muslims, and other immigrants, plus the population of Scotland, which is all pro-EU, and all the ultra-low information retards, aka Marxists, etc. There will have been very few actual English people in that Leave side. Now, like I said, I'm still catching up with things, but the forming of the leftist scum has been quite satisfying. Even more satisfying to me is the news that after the result was announced, quote unquote hate crime have gone up 400%, which is brilliant. But when we say hate crime and hate speech, that means a white person dared to talk or think, as you know. So it's caused a burst of nationalism and quote unquote racism. One of the particularly beautiful examples I saw, I'll read you this tweet out. This was by the vice president of some EU think tank or whatever. And he tweeted, "My friends' kids who are black and British had So Long Farewell sung to them all day at school yesterday." So basically, English kids are like chanting quote unquote racist stuff to black and Muslim kids, which is a good thing. And like I said, there's been a 400% rise in general hate crimes and hate speech. This is all good. I've also, as I said, I've seen the leftists forming like I've not seen for a long time. They are really kicking off. In fact, I've just watched a video before I started this, and he's not a leftist. He's an African invader. He's the Labour MP of Tottenham, David Lammy, and he was on BBC Daily Politics, and he was basically saying, no, we should ignore the referendum. The referendum was just an advisory thing. We should ignore it and we should stay in the EU. And this African immigrant, which is what he is, he were really pissed off that people had voted out of the EU. So here we have this African Zulu peanut butter dindu muffin in a position of power, saying that the English people should just be ignored and we should stay in the EU anyway. And you know what, guys? Even though we've won the Brexit, we've not actually left the EU yet. The system, as always, is so disgustingly slow. It's so fucking crusty and slow that it's going to take, I think, like 2 years to leave or something like that. It should happen straight away. And so there's a chance they will just like ignore it. They'll just try and let it pass by, and like hope that people forget about it, and they'll just try and keep us in the EU. Unity says, I still think they fixed it and there were more Brexits than we think. Do you know what, Unity? I really do not think that they fixed it. Like I said, I really think they were forced to adhere to it. What you've got to remember is that Britain is only about 80% British. Um, so there's the non-white vote, what you have to take into consideration. And then there's various other immigrants of various types. So that knocks a bit off. If it wasn't for them, the non-whites, the result would be a lot bigger for Leave. But I really do not think that they fixed it, to be honest. I really think I'm not saying that they didn't want to. I'm 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 very sure that they would have done, but I think they were forced to adhere to it because of the attention and focus on the very fact that they were uh, likely to fix it. Ed Case says no to racism. Wow, very enlightening, Ed Case, mate. Now, guys, the thing is, and this is why I've titled it uh, plus the general Faeces-Ridden situation, because this is a little victory, but the situation is still very it's very rancid, as you all know. There's so many things happening, but there's too much. I just don't know where to start really. But I'll start with this. We have to remember that we have already crossed the red line. Despite this little victory, the Third World savage hordes, they've already colonized as nations. And if we had to actually stop this entire nightmare, at least 90% of them are going to have to be deported somehow. That is the little reality check about this. Ed Case, what do you mean? Ed Case says race doesn't even have to come into it. Racial bigotry is wrong. Ed Case, what do you mean? What do you mean? Race does come into it when millions of blacks and Muslims have invaded your nation, when you're a minority in your own capital city, when thousands of little white girls are getting raped and gang raped by Muslims, when your resources and future's been destroyed, when you've got austerity forced upon you because decades of immigration has destroyed your economy. Race does have something to do with it. And the fact that we are going to be a minority in his own nation to black and brown hordes who already have an entire continent each. Race comes into it, Ed Case, because they invaded our nations. Otherwise, race wouldn't be an issue. If we were still in their own shitholes, race wouldn't be an issue. So yeah, it's a good and surprising little victory. And the burst of nationalism and quote unquote racism it's caused is good, but we all know that what has got to be done to stop the general nightmare. Something else that I gather is that on Facebook and just on social media in general, there's a lot of hatred getting spouted towards old people. It's basically the multicultural teenagers in England. They're blaming old people for voting Leave, for voting for Brexit, and there's a lot of hatred being spouted by the youth towards old people. So what happens now then? What actually happens now? Well, like I said, the rancid, crusty, largely foreign political class, it is trying to make sure it is going to be a very slow transition to break away from the EU's slimy tendrils. It looks like they're really going to make it slow. And by the way, under white nationalism, that slowness in politics, that would just be totally destroyed. Things would happen quick. People's will would just be carried out proper quick. But another good effect is other nations are now expressing a desire to leave the EU as well. I think Norway has said it is thinking about having a referendum. Even Sweden, even bloody ultra cook Sweden, I think has mentioned it, if I'm correct. Marine Le Pen is capitalizing on it to push for it. So England, everybody thought that we were gone, that we were destroyed, people just totally cooked, totally destroyed. And we may well have managed to deliver a fatal blow to the EU entity. Now, if the Donald becomes president of America, that this could really start changing some stuff. Things could really start happening. White Club says, I believe that white folks are having a collective they live moment where they are suddenly realizing that non-whites are not actually human beings. Well, I know what you mean. I'd not go as far to say that non-whites are not human beings, but I know what you mean with that first bit. And I'm actually going to get onto that as well. This situation with non-whites, they really are at full psychological, physical, racial, demographical, and financial war with us now. Non-whites, non-whites of all kinds, blacks, Muslims, all of them. And I'm not talking about a minority. As you know, guys, it's the majority of them. From young to old, all non-whites, in some form or another, they are working 24/7 to destroy us, take us land, take as women, as resources, as future, to humiliate us, everything. And they are really, really pushing it now. They've reached sufficient numbers and influence where they are really starting to enforce their foreign aims upon us. So I think what we should know, guys, is we ought to be on a war footing now. Because, as you know, the race wars have already begun. A lot of people said that there's going to be race wars, and there is going to be physical race wars. Absolutely. That is totally inevitable. But the race wars have already begun. They're already at full racial, psychological, financial, demographical war with us. And it's not just non-whites, for their biggest part of it, because listen to this story, which I'm going to read you out in a few minutes. And this story shows you just how fucking like shitty things are. Tommy Robinson, yeah, you all know Tommy Robinson of Pegida. He held up an England sign saying "fuck ISIS," "fuck Islamic State," and he's been arrested for inciting racial hatred against Islam and Muslims, for holding up a flag saying "fuck ISIS." So holding up a sign saying "fuck" a Muslim terrorist group that burns people alive and beheads children almost daily. That is hate speech. That is a arrestable offence in England. The thing is, like, one of the elements to this is, and it's like I've said before, as the police become more and more non-white, this is the kind of shit they will do. They will police in a non-white fashion. And especially when it comes to Muslim, like Muslim police. I mean, look, as we know, most Muslims are okay with ISIS, especially the younger ones. They actually support Islamic State. So that's why they're pissed off, because they actually support Islamic State. Most Muslims either support it or they are just like low level okay with it. But they see Islamic State as their Muslim brothers and sisters, whatever. So someone saying "fuck ISIS" to Muslims is hate speech. But the fact that the police are actually following through with this is just... it's a little bit sinister. To be honest, it's hard to be surprised with a shit what happens with just how far things have gone. It's hard to be surprised, really, but it is a particularly sinister incident. Victor Lad says, "I thought Tommy Robinson worked for the feds." I don't think he works for feds or anyone. He's just a Yeah, he's a very moderate lad, and he's pro multiculturalism and so on. But it is genuine. He's politicized a lot of people, to be honest. One of the other things that has happened is, can you remember when I said, some of you might be able to remember, in earlier videos I've said before about London, immigrant majority occupied London, they will call for independence. They want to cut off from the rest of England, and they want to keep all the resources of London for themselves. And this is particularly slimy because London, as you know, it holds all the political, financial, and media power of the country, and it always has done. But because it's now an immigrant majority, they want to claim all that for themselves and announce London as a separate entity. And they've renewed these calls after the referendum result because most Londoners wanted to stay in the EU, which again, that makes sense. Most Londoners are immigrants, the black and brown third world immigrants who always vote against the native population no matter what, because their interests are always opposite to ours. So they're calling for independent London again. The thing is, guys, with London, and I've said this before, eventually, if nationalism and if we whites are, if we are to reclaim, if we English are to reclaim as nation, London will have to be well, not reinvaded. It'll have to be invaded and reclaimed. Unless all power is like moved to another city, London will have to be essentially invaded and retaken. I'd like to get into details of what I'd like to see happen to London, but it's not legal for me to do so. It's not legal to even speculate on things like that, is it? Just another little story, guys, what I came across. Immigrants cost taxpayers up to £17 billion a year. That was just a little Breitbart story recently. That's a very small estimate, to be honest, like, but the winged messenger says London is now a province of Islamic State. It might as well be. I mean, you see it time and time again. People who say they've just like visited London for the first time in a few years or whatever, and they always say they can't believe just how many foreign faces there are in London. And there really is very, very few English or British people there. Because even the white people, I mean, London is it's 40% white, supposedly. Now, a large portion of those whites are like Eastern Europeans and things like that. So what? Like once you've like whittled it down, there is at best a 30% English or stroke British population. So we really are a tiny minority in his own capital. So more good news is the Austrian elections are going to be recounted because it's been found that the leftists tried to commit fraud and fix the elections. Well, they did fix the elections. So the quote unquote far right, aka normal white people, so they lost. But the courts have ruled it void, and it's going to be not. In fact, the whole election is going to be redone. So hopefully, the nationalists win in Austria. Owen Jones, that filthy, traitorous parasite, he tweeted, "Austrian far right gets another shot at the presidency, just when you thought things couldn't get any worse." What a cunt he is, Owen Jones. It's been pretty beautiful watching the likes of Owen Jones and that, like, just descend into smelly, foamy fits of rage at the Brexit result. And just to watch him complain about the rise of quote unquote racism and stuff like that is brilliant. In the first UK Parliament debate after the Brexit referendum result, David Cameron got up, and the first thing he said was, he said something like, "I want to make clear that we are still committed to diversity." And like it just makes you. I was thinking before I came on, like when I watched it, they really are fucking like it really is. It really is a fucking like it's a mental sickness. I've said this before, and other people have said it. it what is it? This thing, this like filthy, dirty thing. What we all have. This obsession with diversity. I mean, that it just had nothing to do with anything. But the first thing he said was that I want to make it. He said, "I want to make it clear, Britain is still committed to diversity and tolerance, and so on and so forth." What is it? This thing, this obsession with diversity, and this obsession with bringing hordes of third world savages into his nations. Third world savages who do nothing but rape as women, destroy as resources, kill us, beat as people up, impregnate as women, and just generally bring filth and just eat and shit and piss 24/7. The obsession with bringing these people in by every single politician to like all the way to the very top is just Winged Messenger says the obsession with it is because it's cheap labor and miscegenation. I'm not sure how to pronounce that word, Winged Messenger, mate. But I know what word it is, like race mixing. Also, just before I came on, I watched the latest video from Libertarian Socialist Rants, that Marxist traitorous cunt, that skinny, weak, cuckold. And he was saying, he was like complaining about the rise of racism and so on. And he like basically made a call for action. I don't know how many of you actually watch this guy's shit, but he basically said we need to activate all anti-fascist networks, and we need to initiate direct action and be prepared to protect non-whites against the rising racism and so on and so forth. And you know what I mean? And again, it's just like you just think, look at what's happening in the world and in our country in general. As children get raped by Muslims, we're going to be a minority in his own country. We're suffering austerity because of decades of non-white immigration and multiracialism. And the first thing these deranged, cuckold cunts think about is to protect the non-white invaders from racism and quote-unquote hate speech. That is their priority. They felt absolutely nothing when the stories of the little English girls getting raped by Muslims. They never talked about that. Not like I don't even know what they felt inside. Like the likes of Libertarian Socialist Rants and Owen Jones and all the rest of the weak cuckold traitors. I don't even know the mind process. But the first thing they think about, just like true cuckolds, is to protect the aggressive non-white invaders. Unity says, do you know about the Kalergi plan? Yeah. Kalergi, I think he was a founder, or one of the founders of the EU. And he said that the purpose of the EU is to create a mixed, muddy brown race. Which would make sense. It goes into that the general aim of the globalists, or it's at least one of their aims, to create just a dumbed down, easy to handle brown race of people, or at least that's one of the theories. Well, it's not just a theory, really. I suppose it's fact, isn't it? Something that triggered me, guys, what I watched yesterday was when Lauren Southern, that woman commentator from the Rebel, and she makes just like other videos as well. I don't know how many of you watch this, but she went to London to a Brexit rally, and she was attacked by anti-fascists who looked pretty foreign, and by an Indian woman. That triggered me a little bit, well, quite a bit, to be honest. And again, it goes back to that, because London is an immigrant majority. Not only have they taken over all of the instruments of power, but they also humiliate us every single day, because they end up representing us. Because London is the capital, and that's where most like tourists go, and reporters and so on, like Lauren. London ends up representing England. But London is an immigrant majority occupied city with a very few number of actual British people. But it's just another one of the slimy effects of London. Humiliating us, embarrassing us, making us look bad. But in this video, these anti-fascists, I mean, like, they were fat and they looked weak as fuck. Do you know what I mean? Just like all of the anti-fascists, you just know you could walk up to them and you could just go boom, like you could just literally knock them out instantly. They're proper weak. They're fat, flabby, ugly bastards. You could just knock them out easily. And most of them look like muds, like they look swarthy as fuck. But they attacked her and they forced her out of the gathering. And then the pathetic British police came up. It were like two women and this old pot-bellied community cop. And instead of helping Lauren and arresting the attackers, they started telling Lauren off for provoking them. And you know, it's just one of the many examples of just how far we've fallen. As police are an absolute joke. It's just the general collapse of things of the multiracial system, and as we're becoming more and more non-white, and as the police have become more and more replaced with Marxists and cooks, it's just like a joke. They just stand by while whites get attacked. Did you see that Wing Messenger? Did it trigger you as well? Britain Safe says, I hate how Britain is sold to foreign tourists now. It's not just sold to foreign tourists. I think, I'm not sure of the actual statistic, but apparently most of London is essentially owned by foreigners. Like, literally owned by foreigners. I thought about this before, and what I thought is, who the fuck give politicians permission to actually sell as capital city? to Muslim kebab foreigners. This is an example, guys, what I'm going to show you now of the utter failure of multiracialism. You all know Amir Khan, the kebab boxer. He recently came out and said he wants to represent Pakistan at the Rio Olympics. So this kebab, who's not British, like, guys, you know my thoughts on this. There's no such thing as British Muslim or British blacks. None of there's no, like none of them are British. Britishness is a white ethnicity, like Englishness. But Amir Khan was held up as this success, this multicultural success, this Pakistani. I really want to say PAKI, but as you know, free speech and free thought is violently illegal in England. If you're actually English. But yeah, it was held up as this multicultural success, and now it wants to represent Pakistan at the Rio Olympics. And really, it's just, I mean, it doesn't tell us anything we don't know. We know these people are foreigners and that they're loyal to their own race and their own nations. This is something what happened a few months ago, guys, and I meant to talk about it, but it goes into this wider thing where these non-white hordes in those countries, it is just how hostile and how totally foreign they are, and just like literally huge foreign armies, utterly foreign in every single way. This is just an example of that. And what I'm talking about is the episode of Loose Women, when the quote unquote comedian Shazaya Mirza, she appeared on it and she said something like, Islamic State terrorists are actually really hot, like as in attractive, and it caused a bit of a furor. But it shows you just how foreign they are. Because to Muslim girls and Muslim women, Islamic State possibly are attractive to them, but it's just such a foreign thing to think into and like to say on like a mainstream program. But yeah, I've moved way out from the original topic of Brexit, but I think one of the main things that we need to do is make sure that it actually that they actually go through with it and we actually do leave it. I mean, it's really, it just like it really pisses me off that when they say when a vote is held and then they say, oh, it's going to be done over the next 5 years or the next like few years, when there's nothing that's stopping it happening like straight away. And there's even talk by leftists and non-whites. There was a petition going round demanding a second referendum, and I think that got above 100,000 signatures. It takes, as you know, it takes 100,000 to get into, I mean, to be talked about in Parliament, and it passed that. So I don't know. I don't know if it's something what's going to get talked about, like, but they really are butter about this. I mean, there's actually another march. Oh no, about what today? Apparently, there's been a march for Europe in London today. I briefly saw the march, what happened after the result in London, and it was basically just all kebabs and African immigrants and a few Marxist cooks marching through London, demanding that we stay in the EU. The, the pro EU march, what's happened in London today, I'm not sure how that has gone, but again, it just shows you, because these people have London, they can hold these marches, and because they are so close to the actual corridors of power, they're able to magnify the power. It gives them a lot more power than what any of us have. Britain Safe says the march against Brexit is a real cheek. They are saying that people were misled. Yeah, that's one of the things what they're saying, isn't it? Whether it's non-white commentators or leftists, they said that, oh, the people were misled by the media. And it's like when they say it's the media's fault that people are anti-immigration and anti-Islam. These filthy parasites, I'm talking about non-white commentators and leftists, like in general, they are so arrogant. These filth think they are so much above everybody else that they think that the people are so stupid and thick. And they also make out that to actually say that it's the media's fault that people are anti-immigration and anti-Islam, when the media is actually full-blown pro-immigration and pro-Muslim. and so on. But yeah, they always say that the people are being misled, as if people just can't think for themselves at all. As if the working class, as if a British working class are just totally uneducated people who just don't know anything at all. And like we all know that leftists do that, but to see non-whites do it as well, and this is one of the other things I was going to talk about. We have a situation now where we have a massive black and brown population, and don't forget, these people, they come from the most primitive, backwards races ever known in the history of mankind. All blacks and all Muslims do. And yet they're here and they're calling us and English people in general backwards and uneducated for being against multiculturalism and immigration. And you see it online as well, that the arrogance they say it, in which they say it. Our race has launched spaceships into deep space, and all the things they've done. These people come from races that have invented nothing at all. They've never done nothing, and yet they are calling us uneducated, our people uneducated and backwards for not supporting immigration and multiculturalism. This is another little story what slightly caught my attention. UK rapper threatens to run a migrant sex train on Nigel Farage's young daughter. So this is some slimy kebab from Bradford, which used to be an English town, but is now a kebab colonized piece of land, is a grime rapper from Bradford called Luna C. And he tweeted to Farage, "Here's a pic of me and my pals on our way to run a train on Nigel Farage's daughter." And the pic he posted was the one showing columns of black and brown hordes invading Europe. And join it's nothing out of the ordinary, but it just backs up that thing where you'll know they always by default go to that. I'm talking about Muslims and blacks. They always default to talking about raping either your daughter or your wife or something like that. They always do it, but I mean, like when you're debating online or something like that, blacks and Muslims will always say that I'll rape your wife, or your women love brown dick, and do you know what I mean, stuff like that. And it's just one example of their mindset, isn't it? And it's just an example of how one of the things that drives them is the taking of our women and the humiliation of us as they like steal as women and stuff like that. That is one of the primal racial desires of these filth. I mean, like when it comes to whites, that it's just not something that we do, is it? We've not ever done that in debates and arguments. It's not something what we do. We don't say, "I'll rape your wife" and shit like that. It's just not something that we've ever done. It's just not something that comes to the white mind. But with these savages, it's the first thing that comes to the mind. Britain Safe says, educated blacks are the most arrogant people I have met. Yeah, do you know what? I've seen a few examples of blacks who have been placed into positions of power, like either as a presenter or something like that. And they really are arrogant. The quote unquote educated blacks and Muslims they're just as bad as the uneducated ones. It could because in their own way they further their race in their own way, no matter what. There's an event coming up what might be worth keeping an eye on when it happens. And this is Milo Yiannopoulos, or whatever his second name is. And I know some people hate him, some people like him, and whatever. But he is going to march through Molenbeek. I think it's called Molenbeek in Sweden. Just let me confirm that. I'm not sure which area, but he is going to do a gay march through a heavily Muslim colonized Swedish Muslim ghetto. So that could be interesting. He's obviously going to have a lot of security with him when he does it. But like this is why I defend people like Milo. I know some white nationalists just like think he's a degenerate who should be ignored and shunned or whatever. But the fact is, he's got a lot of influence and he triggers the non-whites and leftists. And he actually goes out into the real world and like triggers them and makes them kick off, which then it makes white people hate him, hate non-whites even more, which is a good thing. So that's why Milo is a good thing. He inflames the savages. He makes them kick off. Whites see that. It radicalizes them, and so on and so forth. Like anybody who does that is a good thing. It's all good. But yeah, that particular event could be interesting. And just that takes place on the hang on. That's going to happen during Gay Pride Week in Stockholm. Doesn't tell you the exact date, but just look out for that. Now, the latest threat by Islamic State is this. They have told their supporters to actually go into white people's homes and start killing. So that is the tactic now. So at any moment, a Muslim could run into a white family's home and just start stabbing them. It's always worth mentioning, by the way, if all we have to do to stop all this, just think how many resources and white lives have been lost to Muslims, and the hundreds upon hundreds of billions that is spent protecting ourselves against them and giving them welfare and stuff like that. All of this could stop simply by deporting them. Such a simple act. And it's an act that most English people support. Most actual English people want Muslims gone. So it's actually, it would be a democratic action as well. That is all we have to do. Deport Muslims, and preferably blacks as well, and all other non-whites, preferably. But yeah, that is the next tactic, to tell the supporters to start just running into white people's homes and just like start stabbing them and killing. And as you know, it's any Muslim at all could do this. Most Muslims support Islamic State or like them. So, like basically any Muslim is a potential Muslim terrorist. I don't know how many of you actually saw this, but this incident, as far as I know, it seems to have gone by without that many people noticing. Or people might have commented on it, but I've just not seen much of it. And what I'm talking about is pretty recently the black terrorist D. Ray McKesson, who is one of the founders of Black Lives Matter. His Twitter account was hacked. But what was interesting was the content of his direct messages. And what this showed is that he essentially has direct access and dialogue with the African Zulu Attorney General of America, the very appropriately named Loretta Lynch. So what we have here is a black terrorist, D-Ray, and Black Lives Matter in general, which is a black terrorist organization, basically organizing and friends with one of the most powerful women in the world, basically. like certainly the most powerful woman in America, or one of. All right, so there's some pics on Breitbart regarding the anti-Brexit march that happened today in London. It's just a load of Marxist scum holding EU signs and flags. Bob Geldof was there, that utterly pointless leftist cunt. I think Sadiq Khan was there, the kebab mayor of Occupy London. Owen Jones was there, of course, the dirty fucking parasite. And just generally ugly, ultra low information people, aka leftists and Marxists. Because that is what they are, guys, leftists. They are low information people. Nationalists are ultra high information people. But yeah, Owen Jones. Did you all see the video what he made after as well? Do you know what, guys? A few times I've started making a video on Owen Jones or one of his videos, and I just I like end up either just like stopping it or not doing it, because, like I've said before, I find it hard to just to understand how this dirty cunt thinks, and like just like people like him in general, but Owen Jones in particular, because of his slimy personality and the way that is given a platform basically every day on the BBC, etc. And like to watch him as well. I talked about this the other day, but on one of his recent videos, that interview with Michael Moore, at one bit he was looking at the video and I mean looking at the camera while I was speaking, and the way he was stood, it was so fucking weak. Like, you can just tell. You could literally go to Owen Jones and you'd punch him and you would literally kill him. His jaw would just literally break, his face would break. It would just be, it just fucking die. You can tell he's so weak and so faggoty. He's got faggoty arms, spaghetti arms, weak shoulders. Like you could just put your hands on his shoulders and just push him down into the ground. But he looks so weak. And that, combined with his traitorous pro-multiracialism, pro-immigration personality, is the ultimate cuckold. And it's like somebody said the other day, when things kick off, people like Owen, parasites like Owen Jones, they're going to be there in the corner as the black and brown hordes are burning the streets and cities and just going into people's homes and killing people. Owen Jones will be knelt down with shit and piss running down his fat, faggoty legs, and he'll literally be screaming and crying and begging us English working class lads to protect him. But of course, it could be too late by then. I'd like to have a 30-minute conversation with um, Owen and just like look him into his jaundiced, weak, beady little eyes as he defends his ideology. And you know what, guys? Because of all this, what's happening, we've kind of forgot that we are still being invaded by hundreds of thousands of blacks and browns every day. These people are still invading us every single day. But yeah, that just going back to that story, guys, what I touched on. Tommy Robinson getting arrested for inciting racial hatred for holding up a fuck ISIS flag. This is why I say this. Well, this is one of the reasons why I personally think the system, ideally, of course, white nationalism. I want white nationalism to come to power, but the system has to be utterly and totally destroyed. It has to be completely destroyed and then rebuilt, which wouldn't take long. If white nationalism came to power, um, the police would be replaced by a totally white nationalist police. All teachers would be replaced. There'd be an utter and total purge of all leftists, Marxists. All non-whites would be deported, of course. But the system needs to be utterly destroyed. Because we're actually we're getting into a really serious phase of this, like with the race laws and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? I mean, for a while, it's been way up, like past the red line of reasonability. Non-whites have for a long time now had the power, had way too much power to get people fucking arrested and whatever. But it's just it's kind of entered into a new phase. These people have to be removed from the country, at least totally. And you know what, guys? That's my dream. Us as a people, as an English people, like standing around the docks as millions upon millions of blacks and Muslims are marched onto massive purpose-made ships and just packed onto them. And I'm talking about every single one of them, with nothing but the shirt on their back and a pair of mucky used sandals each. That is all. That is literally all we will give them. I know last time we had like kind of a little discussion about it, and the consensus was we should actually pay these people to go. Ideally, we would just seize all the money, strip them, give them a pair of mucky sandals, and pack them onto massive ships and then deport them all. I'm trying to think of some of the other issues what we're going to talk about. There's so many things happening, really. Well, I'll tell you what, guys. I'll just do a bit. I'll do a bit of LARPing. I'll do a bit of LARPing about when white nationalism comes to power. When it comes to the politicians, and I think I've said this before, my personal opinion is that every single one, I mean, the tolerant option, once white nationalism came to power, it would be to say to all politicians, just sack them and then put them into retirement or something like that. That is the extreme tolerant position. Personally, I think that they should all be put on trial. No, in fact, not put on trial, just all locked up with zero trial, zero defense or anything like that. Just all politicians literally locked up for treason and everything else. People like Owen Jones. Now, you've all watched A Clockwork Orange. That is what would be done to fellows like our friend Owen Jones. We would do experiments on him to find out, to experiment on the disease that is Marxism and leftism. Well, I'm saying leftism, but left and right doesn't mean anything. There's, like I always say, you're either a globalist or a nationalist. But yeah, Owen Jones would have the Clockwork Orange treatment. And then he'd be put in a cell and hosed down with freezing cold water. Groups like Open Not A and things like that, under white nationalism, their officers would just be raided. without warning, totally raided. They'd all be locked up without trial straight away. Like, one of the serious things what would happen if white nationalism came to power is actually deporting non-whites. And what I mean is actually starting the process of it. Because non-whites, they would start to riot straight away. For definite. There's no way they'd go easily. So that would be a particularly tricky phase of it all. But with a newly nationalist police force and a newly nationalist army, that would actually be it'd actually be very easy to round them up. Like under this system, it'd be really hard because of the quote unquote human rights stuff and all this and all that kind of stuff. But under white nationalism, it'd be a very, very fast and very simple process. All the money from non-whites, from the richest to the poorest, and I mean, like, even when it comes to the poorest non-white in this country, we would see, like, we'd even seize all their assets. But from the poorest to the richest, all that money would be given to the most poorest working class English areas in the country. Yeah, but it'd just be given directly to the most vulnerable working class people. And by the way, like, when I'm saying that the politicians and people like Owen Jones, they'd be locked up without trial, that is not something that would carry on once things had settled down. That would just be a temporary thing while we sorted out the traitors in power and everything else. But after we'd done all that, and after England was once again 100% white, the primary aim, and don't forget, once non-whites had been deported, we would save hundreds of billions of pounds in the welfare that they steal and the terrorist prevention money and all that stuff. Once we'd deported them all, once all the traitors were locked up, as a people, we'd then like begin the healing process and rebuilding. Firstly, we would make like all the money saved. We would make sure that everything were built up, that not a single white woman or child suffered in poverty. Then we'd start rebuilding as streets, as towns, and as cities. That would be the first priority. Rebuilding the people, and then physically upgrading stroke rebuilding as nation, as actual nation, as actual streets, as actual cities, and so on and so forth. Somebody has suggested work camps for the traitors rather than being locked up. Yeah, you know what, Unity? I like that actually, because my solution of locking him up was a bit boring. But to force him into hard labour, that would be brilliant. Just to actually force Owen Jones to work 15 hours a day, like, and like force him to do something really useless as well, like using a pickaxe to break up rocks, or just something really useless but has no purpose at all, but it's really hard work. Uh, what else would happen under the new white nationalist entity? I sometimes think about it, me guys. Just, you know what I mean? Just how brilliant it'd be. But I mean, like all that what I said, I was like half serious, half tongue in cheek. I mean, I'm serious, but I think all politicians should be locked up without trial and stuff like that, and obviously all non-whites deported and so on. But a really like serious part of it, and a beautiful part of it as well. It would be us as a people healing. Do you know what I mean? Because it has damaged us. I mean, even the process of actually deporting all non-whites, that would be a healing process for us. Because what has happened, it really has damaged us. As a people, we have been damaged by it. I mean, you've all seen these stats that shows most people, I think it's most people, or at least half, suffer from depression or some kind of mental health issue, which is it's no surprise. And the biggest killer of white men is suicide. So we've been really scarred deeply. We've had his pride destroyed. We've been forced to watch as children gang raped and tortured and impregnated by Pakistanis, by sneering Pakistani men, and we've had to cope with them not only gang raping and torturing his children, but impregnating them as well, just to complete the humiliation. And that is just one of thousands of incidents of multiculturalism and multiracialism in general. But we really have been scarred, and the deportation of all non-whites would be a beautiful healing process. And once these people were gone, it's a bit like, do you know, on films when people have been under some kind of influence or something like that, and then they wake up to like a golden sunset, and people wake up and like and then rub the eyes and then like look around. It'd be a bit like that, except we'd know what had happened, but we'd look around at his nation, and then we'd like as a race, and I'm just talking about England here, but this would also apply to Europe and America as well. This would apply to America and Europe just the same. As a people, we'd be able to like bond again. We'd we'd fix as communities that natural thing where white people just, when white people are left alone, they just create beautiful things and safe and happy, peaceful civilizations. That's what would happen. But first, we'd just go through that process of refinding his pride and remembering who we are and his ancestors and his forefathers and stuff like that, and possibly paying tribute to all the whites who've been slaughtered and raped and tortured. The millions of whites who've been raped and tortured by blacks and Muslims and other hostile invaders. Possibly like put statues up for them and stuff like that. But just think how strong we'd become. All of his money just going directly into the people, into rebuilding his NHS and his cities and his streets. And then once his nation were rebuilt, and once every single white man, woman, and child was safe and happy and comfortable, then we'd be able to concentrate on space travel and on the sciences and stuff like that. And one of the big elements to this, and I was going to talk. I'm going to talk about this in a separate video. What I'm going to do about it all. But full work automation, I really think that work. Do you know now in the system, we're supposed to be like the aim is supposed to be to work, and that's it, and spend most of your life working. Well, I think that if white nationalism came to power, we would go full work automation. Robots would do most of the work, and then we'd be free to do like whatever. There'd still be some whites like working, and there'd still be jobs what needed to be done, but robots would be doing most of the work. Nobody would need to go out and work in a factory every day just to live. So work wouldn't necessarily be a desirable thing, nor would it be a needed thing. I don't know what you guys think about that, but because I know some people put a lot of value on hard work. After all that, one of the other aims would then, or pursuits, would be to increase the white birth rate. That would be one of the latter stages, thinking about increasing the white birth rate. The priority would be securing his 100 as newly reasserted 100% white nation, rebuilding his people and cities. Then we have to think about how to rapidly increase the white population. Yeah, exactly. Most jobs can be done uh, by machines. That would be the aim. And with no non-whites here and stuff like that, we'd be able to concentrate on implementing all these things, and it would not take very long at all. So we'd aim for full automation, and then we'd be able to do essentially whatever we wanted to. All resources would go into science, space travel, technology, and stuff like that. But everything, and I mean everything, it would be done for one purpose: to empower white people, and that is it. All resources would be given to white people. That would be the end game of everything. The well-being of the white population, the health of the white population, and the happiness of the white population. We do business with places like China and stuff like that, but would have nothing to do with any Muslim nation, and Africa would just be left. Nature, we'd just leave Africa to the fate of nature. So, like, obviously, it goes without saying that we'd stop sending money to them. That wouldn't even be an issue. That's just a no-brainer. All foreign aid instantly would stop. But yeah, that would be one of the main questions: how to rapidly increase the white population. Now, I've got a particularly excellent idea, but I'm going to share it in a vid on my main channel. A brilliant idea in which we could accelerate the white birth rate. But the thing is, just naturally, once we were a 100% white nation again, people would want to have kids. As cities would be rebuilt, as streets and towns would be rebuilt, um, we'd be totally safe. No more terrorism. No more foreign savages raping us or killing us. Just no more of that. People would feel comfortable about having as many children as they could. People would want to have kids again, because that's one of the reasons people have stopped having children, because of the shitty situation. People subconsciously or otherwise, they don't want to bring white children into this filthy mess. Unity says we need to ban feminists as well. Yeah. I think that is another issue what would fall into line once those things had been done, when non-whites had been deported and stuff like that. We as white males would start to would refine this role, and the white women would naturally like slot back into the natural roles type thing. But yeah, any like feminists who push things, they'd be basically locked up. Well, basically this, like this is what I think. Under white nationalism, for our people, once we're a 100% white nation again, we'd have total freedom of speech and a lot of freedom, and the people would be heard. Do you know what I mean? People would have a direct power to decide the affairs of like decide domestic affairs. The only things that would be illegal would be any talk or propaganda promoting multiracialism, multiculturalism, and immigration. Anything promoting that would be illegal. But that is it. That is the only thing that would be illegal. That's literally the only thing that people would have to adhere to, which would be easy. And the few leftists who were still around, because but still, I mean, like there's still be some of the population, they would be forced to adhere to it. But even they would be happier in the long term. Do you know what I mean? As a nation, we're being rebuilt. Even by the leftist scuns would like they'd be happy soon enough. Unity says I would also make homosexuality illegal again. I don't. I'm not sure about that one, to be honest. That'd be for me personally to be pretty low on their priority list for me personally. But I think what do you know? What just slightly changing the subject. It's going to be interesting to watch what happens if stroke when Donald becomes president of America. Because it's like 99% certain that there's going to be riots when he becomes president. And what I am hoping is once Donald actually has the power, he will crack down on riots by blacks and by Mexicans, etc. He will crack down on them. But yeah, I think that's it. That's all really. I've not really got hotels to bring up. What I can think at the moment. To be honest, I'm still catching up with things. I'm still catching up with the aftermath of Brexit and so on. But at the end of the day, it's a good, positive, small victory. And like I said, that has been the best thing for me. Hearing that quote unquote hate speech and quote unquote racism has risen by at least 400%. That's been the best news about it what I've heard, and it shows you that. Well, it's actually showed a few things. It showed that the people and the window of this is very short. It's not going to be open for much longer at all. But we are still in a time where the people, once mobilized enough, there is still enough native whites left to actually change elections, to actually impose as well. I mean, I'm saying that, but look at the how close Brexit was. It was really close. So, like I said, the window of opportunity is it's not going to be open for much longer. But we are still in a time where the people, where native whites have actually got the power to vote and to use the system to actually get, like, to actually achieve some small victories. I mean, as we know, the system is totally corrupt. We're not living in a democracy anymore. It's a multicultural dictatorship, and that's going to get a lot worse. But it's just a little sign that the people can still vote something in. Hopefully, Americans can do the same with Trump. But at the end of the day, that's why I did that little reality check thing. It's good, but the red line has already been crossed. The non-white savages are already here. The birth rate is all well, you know the birth rate. We've still got 300,000 savages coming into his nation every single year, and his capital city is still colonized. So we still need we still need a white revolution of some kind. But this could be the domino if other European nations leave it as well, leave the EU, which may well happen. Nationalism could really, I mean, it already is rising, and it's going to continue rising as the non-white population rises, as Muslim terrorist attacks continue, as the rape of white children continues, and so on. Nationalism is going to rise, and it is. But yeah, it's hard to it's hard to actually guess what is going to happen now. To be honest, until we know if Trump is going to be the president of America, it's hard to predict. Because if Hillary gets in, we don't know what could happen. But yeah, I'm just talking shit now, guys. Really. So I'm going to leave it at that. So as always, guys, thank you for listening, and I will see you. I will talk to you pretty soon. So good night, guys.